everyone. My name is Lauren Gotlon and I am a licensed New York City sightseeing guide. I'm here to tell you that I'm starting a New York City-based travel vlog, and today is day one. Today's stop is Castle Clinton, but more specifically, the Statue of Liberty. The only way to get to the Statue of Liberty from New York or New Jersey is on the Statue Cruise. Whitehall Terminal, where I'm gonna catch the Staten Island Ferry. The Statue of Liberty. The Museum of the City of New York. I'm here to visit the ongoing exhibit called New York at its Core, 667 Madison Avenue. This is where you can find a bronze replica of the Statue of Liberty. Liberty State Park in Jersey City. The Marquis de Lafayette in Union Square. Today's stop is the Brooklyn Bridge. This bridge was the world's first steel wire suspension bridge and the longest for 20 years. The Queensboro Bridge. It is the longest of the East River bridges, connects the borough of Queens with Manhattan. The Williamsburg Bridge connects the Lower East Side of Manhattan with Brooklyn. The Manhattan Bridge was the last of the 3 suspension bridges built across the Lower East River after the Brooklyn Bridge and Williamsburg Bridge. The Bow Bridge in Central Park. The Park Avenue Viaduct at Grand Central Terminal. The viaduct provides a pedestrian, bicycle, and bus-free express route for taxicabs and other automobile traffic. Today's stop is the Empire State Building. And on a clear day like today, you can see 5 states from the observatories. It's part of the Art Deco stylist movement, and it even has its own zip code, the Chrysler Building. It was the headquarters of the Chrysler Corporation from the 1930s to the 1950s, a leading example of Art Deco architecture. It is still the tallest brick building in the world. The One World Trade Center. This skyscraper is the tallest building in the Western Hemisphere. Today's stop is the Daily Bugle, the Flatiron Building. On a day like today, we really need Spider-Man. Before the Empire State Building took over, the Flatiron Building was most synonymous with New York City. Rockefeller Center is a large complex consisting of 19 high-rise commercial buildings, and it's located in Midtown Manhattan. Radio City Music Hall, the Top of the Rock, the Rainbow Room, ice skating rink, and Christmas tree. John D. Rockefeller Jr. wanted to create a city within a city. The Plaza is named after the Grand Army Plaza to look like a French chateau skyscraper. Suites are on the 5th floor or lower. Was once the 5th Avenue Pond. Opening day coincided with the introduction of the city's first ever taxi cabs, the Algonquin Hotel. This is the oldest hotel in New York City, and today the hotel still maintains its literary and celebrity reputation. The Beekman Hotel. The crowning glory is the magnificent 9-story open Victorian atrium and pyramidal skyline. The Carlisle Hotel. Many presidents have called the Carlisle their unofficial New York home. Velleman's Bar contains the only surviving public murals of the creator of the famed Madeline children's book series, the Highline Hotel. The hotel rooms were formerly dormitory rooms for an up-and-coming Episcopalian priest of the General Theological Seminary. In the 17th century, these majestic grounds were once an apple orchard. Gothic moldings and accent details, including fireplaces, have been maintained throughout the building. Today's stop is the New York City subway. The subway is very easy to learn, but if you need help, there's a lot of customer information. Boroughs are often used as a direction of travel. You also need to learn the difference between local and express trains and subway etiquette. The 2nd Avenue subway opened for service on January 1st, 2017. and it has been New York City's biggest expansion of the subway system in over 50 years. Today's stop is the IRT Lexington Avenue line, but more specifically, the history of subway tiles. Subway tile was originally designed to be placed in the subways. Here, you can see the difference between the original 3x6 subway tile design and now the more modern 4x4. The abandoned City Hall subway station. The once grand City Hall subway station now sleeps quietly under City Hall Park. This was New York City's very first subway stop, but it has been abandoned since 1945. 58 Joralemon Street. This building is not like any other apartment since no one has lived here for more than 100 years. Early subway engineers figured this was an optimal spot for a ventilation shaft. Today's stop is Museum Mile, El Museo del Barrio, the Museum of the City of New York, the Jewish Museum, Cooper Hewitt Smithsonian Design Museum, Solomon R. Guggenheim Museum, the New Gallery, the Metropolitan Museum of Art. The top 3 museums in Chelsea is the Whitney Museum of American Art, the Rubin Museum of Art, the Museum at FIT, which is the Fashion Institute of Technology, the top museums in Manhattan's financial district. This is the 9/11 Memorial Museum, the Federal Hall National Memorial, the Museum of American Finance, Francis Tavern Museum, the National Museum of the American Indian, the Upper West Side Museums, the American Museum of Natural History, Rose Center for Earth and Space. This is the Hayden Planetarium, the New York Historical Society, the American Folk Art Museum, the Museum of Arts and Design, Washington Square Park. Washington Square Park, which is in Greenwich Village, is one of New York City's most densely used green spaces. The elevated acre at 55 Water Street. Developers can add an additional 6.5 feet to a building's height if it included a public plaza on the property. Fantastic views on both clear and gloomy days. Tompkins Square Park, once the largest ecosystem in Manhattan. This one tree stands out from the rest, holds a special significance to Hare Krishna followers. This dog park is the first and oldest in New York City, the atrium at the Ford Foundation. Its large, tree-filled atrium was the first of its kind in Manhattan and set a precedent for other indoor public spaces. Julian Schnabel has planted Palazzo Chubby, a Pompeii red palazzo, atop an early 20th century factory building on the western edge of Greenwich Village. The Dakota Building. It is located at 1 West 72nd Street and is regarded as New York City's first luxury apartment. Federal Hall National Memorial. The original 1703 building was the old New York City Hall, which housed the seat of British government in the colony of New York. The Asser-Levy Public Bath. These public baths are now part of the Asser-Levy Recreation Center. This is one of New York City's last standing buildings from the free public bath program. The Brown Building. This is the location of the Triangle Shirtwaist Factory fire, a defining tragedy in the neighborhood's history. Outrage over the fire led to substantial labor reforms, fire safety legislation, and building codes that still protect us today. Amster Yard. Tucked away in Turtle Bay and encased by the buildings 211 to 215 East 49th Street. This small natural oasis has drastically evolved over the past 200 years. This week, we're going to be talking about the history of Times Square. Before there was a Times Square, the uptown intersection between Broadway and 7th Avenue was known as Long Acre Square after the London Carriage District. Renamed Times Square in 1904 after Albert Ox, publisher of the New York Times, had moved the newspaper's headquarters and operations to a new skyscraper on 42nd Street. So after Times Square got its name in 1904, it became a very popular neighborhood. Electricity in the form of theater advertisements and street lights transformed the public space into a safer and more inviting environment. And this spurred real estate by businessmen who believed that increased foot traffic would generate profits. The Great Depression hampered the growth of Times Square. Theaters began to struggle during this time. Many became cheaper grinder houses. Soon, other forms of lower entertainment arrived. The Times Tower went dark for its first time since its debut in 1928. Times Square's revival was one of New York City's greatest revival stories. But it was in 1907 when the New Year's Eve ball made its maiden descent from the flagpole atop One Times Square. Times Square has experienced flourishes of creative vibrancy, but also periods of great depravity. And yet it remains the crossroads of the world. This week, I'm going to be talking about the history of Chinatown. New York City's Chinatown is the largest Chinatown in the United States and the site of the largest concentration of Chinese in the Western Hemisphere. By 1880, the Five Point slums on the southeast side of New York was home to almost 1,100 Chinese. And what's now known as Chinatown was established. From the start, Chinese immigrants tended to clump together as a result of racial discrimination. Chinatown was largely self-supporting with an internal structure of governing associations. Even with the poor and cramped living conditions, Chinese immigrants continued to slowly expand. When the quota was raised in 1968, Chinese flooded into the country from the mainland, and Chinatown's population exploded, expanding into Little Italy. Both a tourist attraction and the home of the majority of Chinese New Yorkers, Chinatown offers visitor and resident alike hundreds of restaurants, booming fruit and fish markets, and shops of knickknacks and sweets on winding and overcrowded streets. Chinatown is one of my favorite neighborhoods in Manhattan, in part because of the fresh fruit markets, the culture, and there's always something new to see. Columbus Park is Chinatown's major park. This area was originally called Five Points, also site of where the first tenements were built. This area is now known as Chatham Square or Kim Lau Square. The first Shearith Israel Cemetery. It is the oldest cemetery and artifact in New York City, dating back to 1683. The Edward Mooney House is the oldest residence in New York City. When historians talk about New York City history, it is somehow always linked to gangs. But what you're probably not picturing is a 200-foot stretch called Doyer Street. It's the only street in Manhattan bent at nearly a 90-degree angle and is one of the bloodiest streets in American history. Doyer Street was literally stained red in its most violent years, earning the street its immoral nickname, the Bloody Angle. The Secret by Byron Prius. It was published in 1982 and is about immigration, but woven between the stories are 12 puzzles. The author traveled to different locations in North America to secretly bury 12 casks. And make sure you follow me all week as I try to decode image 12 verse 10, which is tied to New York City. But from my very limited research, I think somewhere in this park, near a tree, is the buried treasure. Today, I am outside the Church of Holy Apostles. I volunteered my time here a few years ago at the Soup Kitchen. This weekend in New York City, October 11th to the 14th, is my favorite weekend because of two events, the New York City Wine and Food Festival and Open House New York, for which I will be volunteering for both. I'm at the Union Square Green Market to talk about fresh food and donations. In my opinion, this is one of the best farmers markets I've ever been to. Not only can you buy fresh produce here, which is a huge plus for the environment, but you can also recycle and donate unused goods. On today's topic of bettering New York City and the environment, I will be riding a city bike to work. I usually take the subway because I have a monthly Metro pass and I like to not arrive to work completely sweaty, but I love biking in New York City. This week it's starting to finally get cold in New York City, so I'm going to be talking about coffee. Right now I'm standing outside Cafe Reggio, home of the original cappuccino since 1927, where cappuccinos were introduced to America. Since 1907, Puerto Rico Importing Company has been a fixture in Greenwich Village, particularly known for their fresh roasted coffee beans. They sell 130 varieties of coffee from 28 countries and sell wholesale to 350 restaurants. Today's coffee topic will be about breakfast street carts. The most profitable food cart item is coffee, which commands a 500 to 1,000% markup. For this week's end of the coffee theme, I'm going to be talking about tea, and that's because I'm not a coffee drinker. Chinatown has a huge concentration of tea shops, just like Namwa Tea Parlor behind me. The Chinese are very much into the medicinal herbs and health remedies. In a few days, it'll be Halloween, so I want to take the time to share a few New York City ghost stories with you. And the first location is right behind me. This is Hotel Chelsea. It's currently under construction and not open to the public anymore, but it's one of the most haunted spots in New York. The Merchant House Museum, it's the only 19th century family home in New York City preserved intact, both inside and out. The Treadwell family lived in this house for nearly 100 years, and some say they never left. The restaurant behind me here, one if by land, two if by sea. Many who have eaten at this romantic upscale restaurant have experienced some sort of paranormal activity. Right now, I'm at Sutton Place Park to talk about a famous scene from the movie Manhattan, the Hook and Ladder 8 Fire Department. This is the site where the movie Ghostbusters was filmed. The fully functioning fire department, but in the movie it was only used for the exterior scenes. I'm outside Serendipity 3. This is where one of the famous scenes in the movie Serendipity was filmed. The actors indulged in the restaurant's famous frozen hot chocolate. New York City maps are flawed. I'm standing here in Times Square, the gathering place for all tourists, with a bunch of different maps that I've collected. I'm not saying these maps are incorrect, they're just unreliable. You would never know that Manhattan went up to 220th Street. I'm here in Inwood at 177th, right across from the iconic George Washington Bridge. Or even High Bridge Park, where you can see this really cool tower, and High Bridge over here, which was originally called the Aqueduct Bridge and is the oldest bridge in New York City. Look at this entire section of just New York City travel books. Everything from specific neighborhoods to walking tours to secrets and even food. There is no one correct map and everyone has their opinion. I'm now underground in the subway, standing in front of the large MTA subway map. But if you don't know how to get from point A to point B, this map with a lot of numbers and colors and routes can be very confusing, since there are 472 stations serving 27 lines, more than any other system in the world. So the next time you're in New York City, or even if you live here, challenge yourself to not use a map or your smartphone. Only use one if you need accurate directions or if you're actually lost. Because the best way to experience New York City is just to walk and explore. Here to talk about the Bryant Park Winter Village. And the main feature of this park is the 17,000 square foot ice skating rink. New York City Restaurant Week, it's a celebration of dining out, where hundreds of restaurants throughout Manhattan roll out special prefix 2-course or 3-course menus, and there's one in the summer and one in the winter. And tonight I'm dining with my good friend at the Russian Tea Room. They've been around for 80 years. I'm here at the Bandshell in Central Park, and today New York City Parks, along with other organizations, present the yearly Winter Jam. This Winter Jam also features a snowfield and an ice sculpture garden here on the very popular and touristy High Line in Chelsea. If you ever want to experience the High Line empty without any people, come on a very cold early morning, just like today. Winter is the perfect time to appreciate the garden's skeleton. Today is one of the coldest days in New York City, so I'm here at the City Bakery right near Union Square to warm up on their famous hot chocolate. All right, let's give it a try. For today's morning fitness activity, I'm gonna be walking to work. I'm starting here at Chelsea Market. I'm gonna point out all the major attractions and landmarks. Here's the Verizon Chelsea building, the Rubin Museum of Art, a famous I Heart New York graffiti, Union Square Park and the Farmers Market. And now I'm walking up Broadway. Madison Square Park, the Flatiron Building, the Italy Market, the Empire State Building, Penn Station, Macy's at Herald Square, the Statue of Liberty, Bryant Park, one of the SUNY schools, a place to shine your shoes, the New York Public Library, the Chrysler Building. And finally, I've made it to Grand Central Terminal, here at 7th Avenue and Central Park South, to rent a city bike and take it around Central Park for a nice morning bike ride, offering breathtaking views from flat, hilly, and scenic terrain. I'm here at Union Square Park to participate in the opening signature event of Union Square's Sweat Fest. I'm ready for my workout. It is awesome in here. Look at this room. I'm here at the Socrates Sculpture Park in Astoria, Queens. Even though the exhibit is not here that I wanted to see, it's still quite beautiful at this park. You can see Manhattan and really some cool sculptures. I'm gonna be enjoying a nice run along the Hudson River. All right, let's get started. How could anyone resist this run? It's so beautiful outside. See, look at that. And I'm not even a runner. I'm walking through Union Square Park again to head to the Switch Playground Party. It's the closing signature event for Union Square Partnership's Sweat Fest. I'm in Chinatown at Columbus Park for today's morning fitness activity. Come sunrise, parks and other public areas fill up with people doing Tai Chi. Hey everyone, I'm at the Barclay Center in Brooklyn, here to watch the Lara versus Castano Super Welterweight World Championship boxing event. My first boxing event ever.
It's showtime!
The final was a draw. I'm here at 60th Street and 5th Avenue to view Dutch artist Mark Mander's sculpture titled Tilted Head. I'm here at the Broadway Plaza in Times Square to view the outdoor works of art that are part of the Spring Break Art Show and coincide with the theme Fact and Fiction. I'm here at the Armory Show. It's at Pier 94, 92, and 90 in Manhattan. It's New York City's premier art fair and leading cultural destination for important 20th and 21st century art. I'm here at the Cadillac House to view the installation called Black and Light by Oscar Oiwa, transforming a blank white inflated canvas representing over 2,700 square feet of surface area into a world of landscapes, urbanism, and swirling cosmos. I'm here at the Vessel at Hudson Yards, which just opened to the public this month in March of 2019. This spiral staircase is the extraordinary centerpiece for this multi-million-dollar construction project. It's a soaring new landmark meant to be climbed, and it's my turn to go climb it now. And I've made it to the top. This landmark offers remarkable views. Now I'm here at Macy's at Herald Square, 34th and Broadway, to check out the annual flower show. And they've been celebrating this floral tradition for more than 70 years. These lavish gardens showcase millions of live flowers, plants, and trees from around the globe. Journey to Paradisios is a space-inspired floral fantasy. Just got the bike, it looks so good. I'm so excited. Oh my goodness, I just blew up the tires. I'm riding around Manhattan. Everybody is staring at me. I'm gonna take you on a tour, a bike tour of Central Park, the USS Marine National Monument, Artisans Gate, horse carriages, the Chess and Checkers House, the Central Park Carousel, the Mall, Literary Walk, William Shakespeare sculpture, the Frick Collection Museum is right over here, the Mother Goose sculpture, the Nomberg Bandshell, the Ludwig van Beethoven sculpture, your typical street performers with the crowd, the Bethesda Terrace, the Bethesda Fountain, the Loeb Boathouse, and people on the lake rowing boats. The Conservatory Pond and Curbs Boathouse are right over here, the other side of the Loeb Boathouse for the boat rentals, restrooms, and the restaurant. The backside of the Metropolitan Museum of Art, Cleopatra's Needle, a Hamilton statue here, the Central Park Reservoir, the Guggenheim Museum, the Jacqueline Kennedy Onassis Reservoir, East Meadow and North Meadow, the Conservatory Garden, the Lasker Ice Rink. In the wintertime, it's an ice rink, and in the summertime, it's a pool. The pool pond, very beautiful. The Central Park Tennis Center, the Swedish Cottage, the Belvedere Castle is back here, too far to get to by bike. The Bow Bridge is here, Strawberry Fields and the Imagine Mosaic are right behind me, the Tavern on the Green, Sheep's Meadow with everyone sunbathing. And that's all, folks. Biking around Central Park is awesome. This is Blockhouse number 1, and it's a small fort on the northern side of Central Park. This obelisk, nicknamed Cleopatra's Needle, is the oldest man-made structure in Central Park and the oldest outdoor monument in New York City. Here you can see one of the last standing 1940 Essex Street markets, and right across the street is this brand new modern Essex Market, which opened in May of 2019. Not many people knew about this market, which made it extra special. Now with the really modern place across the street, all the tourists are gonna go there. All the same vendors are here and more, which makes it kind of similar. This new market is really nice and clean. It's just missing a little bit of that grimy old charm that I love. I will be paying a visit to this restaurant very soon. They hold a special place in my heart. I'm here at Industry City in Sunset Park, Brooklyn, and I biked here from Manhattan. It quickly became one of the most successful facilities of its type and enabling Brooklyn to become a major international seaport. Industry City suffered a period of disinvestment and decay for 40 years. Once again, the property fulfills its purpose as a thriving center of commerce and local employment. So make sure you come check out Industry City. I mean, why the hell not? Hey everyone, me and my mate are now here at Greenwood Cemetery. No bikes allowed inside, so I'm just gonna continue by foot. By the early 1860s, it had earned an international reputation for its magnificent beauty and became the prestigious place to be buried, attracting 500,000 visitors a year, second only to Niagara Falls. In 1969, homosexual relations was an illegal act in New York City and other urban centers. Gay bars were places of refuge where the LGBTQ community could socialize. One such well-known place is the Stonewall Inn here in Greenwich Village. Stonewall soon became a symbol of resistance to social and political discrimination that would inspire solidarity among homosexual groups for decades. I'm here at the Edna St. Vincent Millay House at 75.5 Bedford Street. The house itself, considered the narrowest in New York City, is only 9 feet 6 inches wide. Millay was one of the most significant writers of 20th century literature. Cherry Lane Theater, which is just around the corner from the house, focuses on experimental plays in which Millay helped establish. I'm here at the FDR Four Freedoms State Park on Roosevelt Island. On January 6, 1941, President Franklin Delano Roosevelt delivered his 8th State of the Union address, now known as the Four Freedoms speech. This monumental stair has been transformed into a rainbow-hued LGBTQ flag in honor of World Pride. And right by the entrance to the park, there is also this abandoned smallpox hospital, which is a really cool piece of history. Very cool United States Space Shuttle. It's actually a food trunk, hence the name Space Shuttle Cafe. I'm here in Little Italy in Manhattan to celebrate the Feast of San Gennaro. Now in its 93rd year, this festival is the oldest New York City street fair as a way for immigrants in New York City to maintain the Italian tradition of honoring Saint Gennarius with a feast every September. It's the 3rd weekend in October, and guess what that means? Yes, Open House New York weekend, one of my favorite weekends all year. And this year I'm volunteering at the Renee and Haim Gross Foundation. It's hard to go to all 300 locations in one weekend, but I'm gonna do my best. And let's have some fun seeing some really cool open access sites that typically aren't available throughout the year. All right now I am walking to West Beth, which is on 155 Bank Street, and it is supposed to be the largest studio space of artists in the United States, if not the world. All right, it's day 2 of Open House New York. I'm so excited for today. Heading to my first stop, the Swedish Cottage in Central Park. So it was a schoolhouse and now is a marionette theater. I'm now in like Morningside Heights area, and I'm going to General Grant's tomb. So excited to actually go inside for once. This weekend is crazy, it's awesome, but I love Open House New York. They give me an excuse to go crazy in New York and go to all the spots I haven't been to. All right, I made it to my 3rd location, the Morris Jumel Mansion, which is the oldest still in existent property in Manhattan. It's now raining, but I'm gonna go take the 2 o'clock tour and learn about the history of the building. Sylvan Terrace right here. It's like 20 row houses, and it's super famous apartments. They're like, I don't know, about 2 million each. And I always wondered where it was, and it just happens to be right here. Really cool. For my 4th stop, I'm heading to the Actors Temple. It's a beautiful synagogue that they've also turned into an off-Broadway theater. A lot of really famous Jewish actors were members of this synagogue and attended with their families. If you're ever in New York for this weekend, I highly recommend coming. I wish it was more than 2 days. It's a lot to pack into that time, and it's a little overwhelming, but really fun. Are you a New York City expert? Let's find out.